It was a moment of profound visual humiliation, though it was not broadcast on the nightly news. Inside a sterile, brightly lit conference room in Switzerland, the Duchess of Sussex stood behind a podium to deliver an earnest lecture on the urgent dangers of social media. But the devastating truth of the moment was captured not in the words she spoke, but in the glaring reality of who was actually listening. The room was sparsely populated, reportedly filled with mere passers-by who had stopped out of mild, morbid curiosity. The global phenomenon that once shut down entire city blocks in London and Sydney was now delivering carefully rehearsed monologues to empty chairs. It was a staggering metaphor for a commercial and reputational collapse that has been years in the making. But while Meghan Markle spoke to a vacant room, her husband was fighting a much quieter, far more dangerous battle. This is the story of a man who traded a historic empire for a Hollywood illusion. In this video, we will unpack the dark, psychological reality of Prince Harry's current existence, the staggering moral contradictions of the Sussex brand, and the devastating revelations from top-tier royal insiders that suggest the Duke is only now waking up to the ultimate betrayal. We will look at the subtle public signals that expose a deeply fractured reality behind the gates of Montecito, and why the heavy doors of Buckingham Palace have been locked to him forever. To understand the sheer magnitude of this fall from grace, you must first remember the absolute power Prince Harry once wielded. He was not just the spare to the throne, he was the beating charismatic heart of the modern monarchy. Born to King Charles and Princess Diana, Harry was uniquely and fiercely beloved by the British public. He lived for the frontline service. He thrived in the grand pageantry, the solemn military parades, and the deep historical weight of his family's legacy. His identity was inextricably tied to his uniform, his title, and his duty to the crown. He was the relatable prince, the brave soldier, the magnetic force who could disarm a room with a single genuine smile. That was his birthright. That was his absolute truth. But that man no longer appears to exist. Today, observers and royal historians note a chilling shift in his physical demeanor. The vibrant, imposing frontline royal has been replaced by a man who navigates the world with hunched shoulders, carrying the visible, heavy weight of profound regret. The contrast is devastating. Harry was promised a quiet life. When the couple orchestrated their unprecedented and chaotic exit from the royal family, the narrative sold to the public, and seemingly to Harry himself, was one of rural, uninterrupted peace. Sources close to the palace, including journalists who once considered themselves sympathetic to the couple, have revealed that Meghan actively researched remote properties in South Africa during the early days of their exit. She painted a compelling picture of a secluded farm life, raising cattle and seeking shelter far away from the blinding flashbulbs of the British press. It was many royal insiders now believe a spectacular and ruthless bait and switch. Harry, desperate to protect his new wife and secure a safe haven, bought completely into the vision of a private, idyllic existence. But the Duchess of Sussex seemingly had no intention of fading quietly into the countryside. The ultimate goal was never total privacy. It was total monetization. The strategy was to secure a royal prince, extract him from the rigid confines of the institution, and leverage his historic blood-given title to build a billion-dollar celebrity empire in the United States. Harry was not an equal partner in a quiet retreat. He was the primary, indispensable asset in a massive commercial launch. The psychological toll of this realization is staggering to witness. A human being's core identity is constructed from their childhood, their deeply rooted traditions, their family bonds, and most profoundly, their daily purpose. For 4 decades, Harry's entire purpose was mapped out and sustained by the crown. Now stripped of his cherished military honors and his patronages, he is adrift in a $16 million California mansion, entirely divorced from the only world that ever made sense to him. He is Prince Harry in name, only attempting to play the hollow role of a prince in exile. We see this quiet desperation in the pseudo-royal tours to places like Australia and Ukraine, where he attempts to command the stage as a global statesman, only to look deeply out of place, unanchored, and fundamentally lost. And as Harry wrestles with this total loss of identity, the Sussex public relations machine continues to expose its own hollow core through staggering double standards. Consider the recent events leading up to that desolate conference room in Switzerland. Meghan Markle flew on a private luxury jet to join global health leaders and passionately preach about the urgent need to protect innocent children from the inherent toxic dangers of the internet. It was framed by her team as a noble, compassionate crusade for digital safety. Yet just days prior to this summit, The Duchess had taken to Instagram to post a casual mirror selfie from inside her sprawling closet. It seemed like a standard, mundane celebrity maneuver until viewers noticed the highly strategic inclusion of her young daughter in the frame, labeled affectionately as a little helper. This was not a careless accident. This is the calculated weaponization of family for brand engagement. Children who have never chosen a life in the public eye, whose absolute privacy was cited as the primary, desperate reason for tearing the British royal family apart, are now being deployed as visual content to drive social media algorithms. The moral contradiction is undeniable and devastating. You cannot relentlessly sue the global press for privacy, tear down a 1,000-year-old institution to protect your children from the spotlight, and then casually platform those same children to millions of strangers just to boost a struggling commercial brand. It exposes a terrifying and deeply uncomfortable commercial desperation. The massive multi-million-dollar deals with streaming giants are quietly drying up. The grand Hollywood introductions have faded into polite, distant rejections. The Sussexes are discovering a cold, brutal reality of the American celebrity ecosystem. Their entire market value is, and always was, predicated on their close proximity to the British crown. The further they drift from the institution, the less the world cares about what they have to say. The public has realized that the Sussex brand is not built on groundbreaking talent or transformative philanthropy, but on an endless cycle of grievance, and grievance has a very rapid expiration date. Behind the iron gates of Montecito, the financial and social pressure is reportedly suffocating. Maintaining a lifestyle built for billionaires on a rapidly depleting income requires constant, exhausting hustle. This is why the principles they once violently defended are now being quietly compromised. Every public move is highly transactional, but Harry is not a transactional man by nature. He does not understand the cutthroat, cynical mechanics of Hollywood survival. He only understands the quiet, unspoken dignity of the royal protocol he so aggressively abandoned. Harry is allegedly waking up to this suffocating nightmare. The realization that he may have been the victim of an emotional and professional con trick is a heavy, isolating burden to bear. He traded a legacy of global respect for a lifetime of chasing fleeting relevance. But the most devastating aspect of this tragedy is not what he is slowly losing in California. It is the absolute, terrifying finality of what he left behind in London. The relentless public attacks, the tell-all memoirs, and the explosive television interviews have exacted a permanent, irreversible toll. Top royal journalists, those with direct, unimpeachable lines into the heart of the palace, have confirmed a chilling reality regarding the future king. Prince William does not just feel disappointed or betrayed by his brother's actions. That initial anger has solidified into a cold, impenetrable wall of disgust. The consensus behind closed doors is absolute and unforgiving. They are no longer brothers. As Harry stands on the precipice of a failing American dream, isolated in a sprawling mansion with a fading identity, he is about to face the ultimate crushing consequence of his choices. The heavy doors to the monarchy have been permanently sealed shut by his own blood, and the quiet, systematic erasure of his royal existence is already underway. The most chilling realization for Prince Harry is not that his family is actively fighting him, but that they have simply stopped fighting altogether. The British monarchy has deployed its most devastating and historically effective weapon against the Duke of Sussex. It is not retaliation, it is silence. The grey rocking of Prince Harry is absolute. While King Charles may harbor a quiet, private paternal grief for his youngest son, the institution of the crown is entirely unsentimental. Prince William, the future king, and the fiercely protective enforcer of the monarchy's survival, has reportedly drawn a permanent line in the sand. For William, the relentless public attacks on his wife, his father, and his deeply held sense of duty were not just familial squabbles. They were unforgivable acts of institutional sabotage. The door is not just locked, the entire building has been relocated. The royal machine has seamlessly closed ranks, moving forward with a streamlined, united front that explicitly relies on the absence of the Sussexes. Harry is no longer a problem to be solved. He is a ghost they have already mourned. This profound institutional excommunication leaves Harry entirely unmoored in a world he was never built to navigate. To understand his current psychological reality, you have to look at the staggering emptiness of his daily existence. Men, particularly men forged in the structured high-stakes environments of the military and the monarchy, require a tangible sense of purpose. They need an identity rooted in service duty and measurable impact. For his entire adult life, Harry was a man of action. He was flying Apache helicopters, organizing the Invictus Games, and representing the Queen on the global stage. Today, his reality is confined to the gilded cage of a sprawling Montecito estate, where his primary function appears to be the supporting character in his wife's commercial rebranding. The visual evidence of this shift is difficult to ignore. Watch his body language in recent public appearances. The man who once confidently commanded military parades now trails obediently behind Meghan on red carpets, his shoulders tense, his smile strained, projecting the deeply uncomfortable aura of a man held hostage by his own life choices. He traded the historical weight of the British Constitution for the shallow transactional ecosystem of Hollywood networking. And the tragedy is that he is rapidly discovering that Hollywood loyalty only extends as far as your last successful project. While Harry wrestles with the profound loss of his identity, Meghan is executing a ruthless, calculated commercial pivot that exposes the original lie of their royal exit. The grand narrative sold to the public was that the Sussexes were leaving to pursue high-minded global philanthropy. They were going to be moral leaders, elevating humanity through billion-dollar production deals. But as those deals have spectacularly unraveled, and as industry executives have publicly branded them as lazy or uninspired, the mask has slipped. The grand philanthropic vision has devolved into the frantic hawking of domestic lifestyle goods. We are watching a woman who once stood on the balcony of Buckingham Palace alongside the Queen, now attempting to monetize her relevance by sending jars of fruit spread to influencers. The contrast is not just embarrassing, it is a staggering measure of their commercial desperation. It reveals a deeply transactional mindset. Meghan is a survivor of the entertainment industry, an ecosystem where you must constantly reinvent yourself to stay relevant. But Harry is not a brand, he is a prince of the realm. He does not know how to hustle for relevance. He does not know how to commodify his daily life into an Instagram aesthetic. This fundamental mismatch in their survival instincts is where the ultimate fracture lines of their partnership are beginning to show. PR experts and eagle-eyed observers have noted a subtle but undeniable strategic distancing between the two. They are increasingly taking on solo engagements. Meghan is heavily focused on her lifestyle brand and cultivating a network of wealthy California elites, while Harry clings to the remnants of his philanthropic past, attempting to project the gravitas of a global statesman. But the uncomfortable truth is that Meghan's commercial viability is entirely tethered to Harry's royal mystique. If he is permanently exiled, if he is no longer viewed as a prince but merely as a wealthy, complaining celebrity, his value to the Sussex brand plummets. This is the dark, psychological undercurrent of their current reality. Harry has weaponized his trauma and sold his family secrets to the highest bidder, wrapping his betrayals in the insulated language of therapy and mental health awareness. But victimhood is not a sustainable career path. The public's patience for billionaire grievance has violently expired. You cannot endlessly complain about your tragic privileged existence while the rest of the world navigates actual economic and social crises. The market for their complaints has crashed, leaving them with massive overhead costs, a plunging cultural stock, and a narrative that has run completely dry. This story resonates so deeply with the public, not because we are obsessed with royalty, but because it is a devastating modern Shakespearean tragedy. It touches on the universal terrifying themes of family estrangement, the blinding nature of infatuation, and the realization that some bridges once burned can never be rebuilt. We are watching a man who possessed everything that money could, not buy trade at all for things that can only be bought with money. He sacrificed 1,000 years of legacy for a fleeting moment of Hollywood applause, only to find the theater empty when the applause died down. When you strip away the titles, the PR spin, and the manufactured outrage, what remains is the tragic silhouette of a profoundly isolated man. A man who might eventually wake up in 10 or 15 years in a sprawling California home, surrounded by the hollow trappings of celebrity, realizing he is entirely alone. The Hollywood insiders will have moved on to the next shiny distraction. The commercial ventures will have run their course. The British public will have solidified their indifference. And the family he so ruthlessly discarded will be ruling a kingdom an ocean away. Looking back at him not with anger, but with the cold, absolute finality of pity. Thank you for exploring this deep dive into the psychological and PR realities of the Sussex brand. I want to know where you stand on this. Do you believe Prince Harry has finally realized the magnitude of his mistake? Or is he still blinded by the California illusion? Will the palace ever offer a path back, even a quiet one, or is the erasure permanent? Leave your most honest thoughts in the comments below as I read every single one. If you appreciate this level of forensic analysis, make sure you are subscribed and hit the notification bell so you never miss a breakdown. Until next time, stay sharp and look beneath the surface.